Simone,
Morning, how you going?
good morning. It's awfully formal, but thank you. Mate, you're a fascinating character, and I'm somebody, like, I was explaining how I kind of do this to the lady the other week, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
well, I find fascinating characters or people that ask fascinating questions or pursue interesting, at least my eyes, endeavors, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do any research on them. Like, I'm not bothered about that. I'm not that
Yeah.
guy who's going to pull up a study and I'm not that guy.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to ask the horse's mouth. I'm going to go find that horse in the paddock.
Yep.
I'm going to look it in the eye and be like, yo, what's your life like? Like, tell me, because I'm never going to know. I'm never going to have lived your life. I'm never going to be a lady. I'm never going to
Yeah,
live in, be from Africa or whatever it is. I'm never going to know those things. So
absolutely.
here we are, mate,
Yeah,
in a
love
bit of
it.
a bird's eye view, low down. Who are you?
Do you know what? I'm just an everyday person, country girl by heart, and it's something you can never take the country girl and put her into the city. And that's what people say, you are just you, Simone, and that's why your journey is where you are today, is because you haven't changed.
Mm.
No matter where you are or what you're doing in the world, you're just true to yourself. And like I just explained, I love helping people, hence why, got to do with my 87-year-old neighbour what I got to do. So it's now, with my journey, never want anyone onto it, but if I've turning it into a positive, I just want to help that next person, and to not let them go through what I've been through.
Do you mind sharing a wee bit of what you did go through?
Absolutely. So I'm a mum of 3 beautiful children who are now 27, 24 and 22. And they're married their biological father at, a young age myself, and ended up separating from him with no domestic violence. It was only that we had too much money, and he wanted to do everything with myself and not be a dad to the children. And as I said earlier, that country girl in me, and all I wanted to do was, idolizing my mum, how she brought myself and my 2 sisters up. That's all I wanted to do was be a mum to my children. And so we separated and went our own ways, and that was totally okay. I was okay at sport growing up, and so was my dad. And so obviously the ripple effect, my children were very good at basketball, and my eldest was a state basketball player for Queensland. And so I was just enjoyed being that taxi, working mum with the 3 children. And I got to the age of 37 and decided, maybe, my children are 15, 12 and a half, 13 and 10 now. Maybe I can have another person in my life. And so I did. I enjoy having a beer and a wine, but not going to nightclubs and pubs and all that type of stuff. And so I thought, how am I going to, meet someone all with is my children and, friends and family of ours. And so I got onto the dating site, and prior to the government job I had in Brisbane, I used to be a real estate agent and had to obviously forego that when children came, because it's a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week job, and it is for a single person. And so scrolling through the men on the dating app on the internet site, popped a real estate agent. Do you know what? That was like a light bulb moment to me. I thought, perfect. He's got to have a police check to get his real estate license. I did that unpacking of that, and I thought, he's got to be safe. And because it was going through my mind, how do you know who's safe, who's not safe, who's fake, and da da da. So that was my, yep, perfect. I thought, yep, great. So clicking on him, and even then, being that mum, I had to put boundaries in place because my children came first. So I said, look, I can't chat until 9 o'clock at night. I want to make sure that everything is done for the children and they're in bed and whatnot. And he was happy with that. So that chatting through the site, and then he asked if we could exchange numbers, and we did do that then. And so still the same. And after a few weeks, he said, can I actually ring you at 9 o'clock instead of just texting? And so I agreed on that. And so then we were chatting, over the phone at night. And then he said, can I take you out on a date? To meet in person and whatnot. And I said, yeah, okay. So I'd organised a sitter for my children, even though, my eldest was 15. I still that protective mum. And so he picked me up and greeted me with a bunch of flowers, which even to today, I get that gooey thing because I hadn't received any flowers for many years being that single mum. And he picked me up and we went off on the dinner date, and that was all good. He paid for dinner, which I was very grateful for. And so from then we did go into a relationship that only lasted 9 months. And from that, little red flags were starting to appear for me. And, yes, not being in any relationship since the biological father, the separation there. And there was, as I said, there was, no domestic violence. It was just too much money, too young, is why we separated. And these little red flags were deleting contacts out of my phone. And my youngest, poor little Zach, being, 10 and wanting to play with my phone. It happened 3 or 4 times, and I said to him, mate, I said, please don't, delete contacts. I need it to get you from A to B, with your sporting and schooling and everything. He said, Mummy, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. Then it happened another, 5 or 6 times, and I just had this sick gut feeling in my tummy. And I thought, oh, this isn't sitting right, and now I can't emphasize enough to whoever is listening to this is because run with your gut feeling, because it's always right. And then there was money going missing out of my wallet. And once again, poor little Zach, being that young boy, was getting blamed for it. And I was saying, mate, don't steal it. I need it for tuck shop. Don't use it for tuck shop. And he'd never done anything like that before. And there were a whole little other, just little red flags. He never said SHIT in front of myself or the children. Gentle giant, as in opening car doors for us all to get in and out of the car, and very polite and well mannered. And prior, with all these little red flags just growing, the week prior, or week and a half prior, he started sending me flowers to work, and it called me ungrateful, but it just made me feel really sick in the tummy. It wasn't just one bunch every couple of weeks; it was every day. And obviously, my work colleagues are going, "Oh, Simone, he's a keeper. He's a keeper." And I just felt sick, I just, felt bad. And so and you would not believe what today's date is, but it's actually the D-Day today that happened to me in 2012. So that was a Monday in 2012, the 25th of September 2012. So the Friday prior to that, I actually rang a friend and I said to her, how do I get out of this relationship now that I'm in it? And she said, let's. And let's is just a boring word to everyone, but to me, I'm just so grateful, and it's just something that is big in my mind. Because she said, let's do it on Monday when you drop the children at school. And me not knowing about any domestic violence, from my parents, or, even my situation with the biological father, or my siblings, etc. I was like, oh yeah, this is great, So Monday came around and I dropped the 2 girls at their train to catch the high school, and I had to drop, Zach, he was still in primary school at this time, and dropped him at school, and then I caught the train in, and I ended the relationship on the way by a text message. I didn't know how to do it otherwise. I just thought, no, I'll do it like that. And gee, it was a relief to end the relationship before I got into work. So getting up to lunchtime, obviously we didn't have our phones like we do today, getting emails and everything. So I checked my phone at lunchtime, and there were so many messages from him. I didn't reply. I didn't read any of them. Going back to work and then heading home that night, and even more. And to this day, as I speak to you, I don't know what any of them actually said, but I know that there were hundreds of them. So the investigators said. So I got home at 6 o'clock, and Zach was actually at training this night, and Gabby and Ashlyn were at home, and Gab was 15, so she was not only my eldest daughter, but like my best friend. We run everything by each other and da-da-da. And so I walk in and ask, how's your day at school, girls? Da-da-da. Get the old boring, nothing, type response every day. And I said, well, Mummy ended the relationship today. And Gabby did a big fist bump and said, yes. rude or disrespectful to him. She just never let him into her life, whereas Zach idolized him, having that male figure around.
Mm.
And Ashlyn said to me, she goes, Mummy, will he come back? And I said, no, when you end a relationship, it's, like myself and your biological father, you just go your own ways and you live your life. Then there was a knock at the door at 6:06, and I could see, and please, what I'm doing now in my journey, I'm not negative towards men at all. We've both sexes, we need to work together on the crisis that we're in Australia in domestic violence. But you'll understand why I'm going to use the word perpetrator, and I do apologise. There are good men out there.
Use any words you want.
I could actually see the perpetrator through the little glass paneling on my door. And my dad always taught me to be respectful. You talk to whoever comes to you, or vice versa. You have your manners. And so I thought, I've got to talk to him because I haven't spoken to him in person, So I entered the door and he said, can we talk about this? And I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. And he said, can we go into your bedroom? And I said, yeah, because the girls were in the kitchen. Gabby was, starting to cook dinner for me, and she does every night. And went into the bedroom, and I walked in first in my corporate clothes. And the only real question I can remember him saying is, why can't we make this work? And I'd said to him, I said, look, you deserve that 110% of love. I said, I can't give you that. I said, I've got 2 jobs, 3 children. I said, life's busy, and I said, you deserve someone better than what the time I can give you. I said, but let's just say friends and, someone in my circle and vice versa type of thing. And the next minute I know, I was actually on the ground. I don't know, and the investigators don't know if he pushed me or I tripped, but you'll see tape on my arm here. I looked up being on the ground, and I could see a baseball bat coming down on my arm, and it connected with my arm. So he hit that 3 or 4 times, and I knew it was broken because it was actually dipping. So I yelled out to the girls. I could hear them outside the door, which was great. I said, girls, come in and help Mummy. Mummy needs your help. And I'll never forget Gabby's vision, my eldest daughter. She looked at me as if to say, Mum, you can do anything. You can fix the house, the car, da-da-da-da. But I tried pushing off on that arm, and I knew I was in trouble because that arm was broken. The arm was the bone was out. And I just said, go get Mummy help. Mummy needs your help, And this is where now in the world, I don't care what nationality we are, what colour our skin is, or what language we speak, and da-da-da, because I had Samoans on one side of me and South African on the other side of me. And they actually thought the girls were just playing games because there was never any domestic violence in the home when they were, running in and out of the home. And this is where now this night that this happened, because the Samoan boys were actually meant to normally start work at 6 o'clock, and they weren't actually starting till 8 o'clock this night. And they obviously Gabby rang 000, and 000 did actually accidentally hung up on her, but they did retrieve the call, and I've been able to find that out because of the work I do with the ambulance now. But so the services were there as quick as lightning. But from that 6:06 to 6:16, I'd actually endured 45 to 50 hits to the right side of my face with the baseball bat, which, has left me now blind in this eye. I've lost my sense of smell. This whole side of my face is all titanium plated with an implant here, and all my jawline was all smashed in. So obviously, with the kids out the front, yelling out for help, and the services all coming, the big Samoans, when the police arrived, they had to actually take the perpetrator out, and they were told that they couldn't, do anything to him because he would turn it back on them. But they're beautiful, gentle giants, and they said to me, Simone, we weren't allowed to hit him, but we did get a knee in his back and place his face into the dirt till the Dibby van arrived. And the South African lady, in which I'll keep going and you'll find out. She worked in pathology, and so with the children saying Mummy's got a broken arm, she ran in saying, get me ice for Mummy's arm. She had took one look at me after that 10 minutes of time, and she knew, she had like, no, get me dry towels for Mummy. She knew to wrap dry towels around my head to keep my head together until the ambulance service arrived. And she has since said that my face was like mush, but she knew they had to be dry towels. If they were wet, it would have killed me instantly with my brain exposure. So getting so many hits to the face in that time. Obviously, I was actually still conscious. I was actually talking to her until the ambulance service came, but I must have been in excruciating pain. And this is now working with the ambulance because the medication they gave me at the scene has actually blocked out. I don't remember any hits to the face. I only remember the arm. But obviously the medication has blocked that. So I don't have nightmares or anything like that as such moving forward. But the children obviously thought that I'd died at the scene. But we've since found out that they did have to put me into an induced coma at the scene because I've learned so much about our incredible body that any brain injury, your brain swells. So it would have blocked my air pipe before I'd even got to hospital. So they did that to obviously to rest my brain, and going straight to theatre, and the children were taken to the police station to do their statements, the two girls, and they had to leave there at 2 a.m, which leads on to the 26th of September, and come and say goodbye to me. And that really is gut-wrenching for me and my middle daughter, because it was her birthday on the 26th. So at 2 a.m, she had to come and say goodbye to me. And it's also Karen, the neighbour that saved my life. It's her birthday as well on the 26th. So today is a horrible day. Tomorrow is both their birthdays, where they had to come and say goodbye to me because they didn't think I was going to make it. Obviously, I did. I got through that night and then had to go back the next day for another operation. And they said kids called back in again. They said, Mummy's going to be given 3 to 5% chance of survival, but she's going to be, brain dead, won't be able to walk or talk or do anything again. And so they came in and said goodbye again. And then they were told the next 10 days is going to be crucial. And on the 9th day, one of my work colleagues must have come in and he said to me, "You're going to get through this." And I must have said no. But he said he went and asked the nurses, and they said, "Look, she could be just healing. She could have an itch. She could be, we'll look after her," and da-da-da. So obviously eventually waking up in the ward and ICU ward, and I must have had a sign above my head. No one was allowed to tell me what was wrong, because they didn't know my brain condition, what if I was, had any memory loss or da-da-da. So obviously moving forward to today, which I'm still like a prisoner in my own body. I have had 52 operations as I speak to you, and it's a daily chore to dress up, dress down, not as in clothes, to treat my body with my wounds. And having the 52 operations, I have still got 2 more to go, but I do actually fly back to Brisbane every 7 to 10 days for a form of treatment, which is something that's going to be, for the rest of my life. It's going to be ongoing. But that's where now I actually turn my story into a positive, and actually thank the perpetrator for hitting me so many times, which you're probably thinking, why are you doing that? Because I've since found out he hit me so many times that he actually shattered my skull, which has actually gave my brain room to keep moving and swelling. Whereas if he only hit me 5 to 10, there wouldn't have been any room for my skull, my brain to move inside. So it's now turning my journey from that negative into a positive, and even doing things now in life, and yes, I'm losing my sense of smell. For example, the kids growing up, I always hated the school smell, especially on Zach. So he would go to me, no, Mummy, I don't have to have a shower now. You can't smell me. Like turning the funny side into it. But one thing, I was during all my operations, I was actually asked to run the New York Marathon, which is the world's biggest marathon. And between operations, I said yes, because I wanted to prove to women and children here in Australia that we can do anything. We can change our mindsets from a negative into a positive, and to prove that you can go from the brink of death to run the world's biggest marathon. We can do anything in this domestic violence space and help out each other to keep, that the mental health of people, and get them in the next space of forgiveness and gratefulness, and your self-love. And that's what I I do really want to emphasize to everyone is do something as simple as start loving yourself. I know I look different than any other beautiful woman out there and never will be the same again, but I actually do love myself now. And that's something that I've had to put myself first over my children. And that, now healing internally heals externally. And, now, I want to just help that next person around the world to not have to go through what I've had to suffer, from little red flags turning into big red flags in my journey.
Wow. Hey, I want to say thank you for sharing that.
And you know what? It's something that people say, how do you do it? And I just want to help that next person. As I'm helping my neighbour today, it's just, our mental health. It's something now when presenting to schools. We need to have domestic violence as a part of our school curriculum. Little Johnny, who's could be seeing it at 5 years old, could be affecting his schooling. At least if we can unpack it and get them to talk at a younger age, it's going to help mental depression and different things like that. And that's what, speaking at schools, I actually tell the students, I said, we should be having counselling, each and every day over spilt milk. It's counselling's a bomb. We need to be able to unpack what's in our mind and not let it sit there and stew. And, even, chatting to you today, I feel like I've lost 10 kilos off my shoulders because I've put it out there, and it's a relief for me. But now, I've got up this morning at 5:30. You'll be stoked I did to go for a run before I actually had this, because I wanted to be in a positive mindset and know that I feel good in myself to be able to do what I'm doing now with you.
Well, here's the thing. It goes both ways. You might have lost 10 kilos of weight, but I've gained 10 kilos of knowledge.
Teamwork.
Absolutely. And being able to listen to people's stories means we can dip our paintbrush into their perspective and we can see the world through a different way.
That's exactly right. Totally agree.
But that's magic. We got two sets of eyes. Oh, we got one set of eyes. We got two eyes. We can look at the world in one way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've only got one eye now, so I look it through one eye. And see, and that's where, as I said earlier, you've got to, instead of sitting and dwelling on different things, and sitting in with my neighbour last night, she goes, Simone, I don't know how you do it every day with one eye, obviously because she's got a patch over her eye with the cataract operation. And I said, you just learn, your brain adapts to it, and you do what you got to do. And do you know what? I've always got my knees with scratches on them because I fall over, the different depths in gutters and all that type of stuff, and I make it as a joke, oh, stupid me, type of thing. Is just looking at life through a different lens, and we've got to.
You mentioned something during your story, and I'm fascinated on it. I've been thinking about it every day for about 10 years. You mentioned about trying to figure out whether this man was safe. What makes a man safe?
Do you know what? That's when now the whole journey has got even bigger, because looking out for any little red flag is a big red flag. And me getting to meet him, and him being in real estate license, he told me he hadn't been married and no children, and I believed him. And it wasn't until after the trial and his face went around Australia with his sentencing, 2 wives come forward.
Okay.
He'd actually been married, and I didn't even know, but he actually assaulted them and the second one's parents. That's when now my story gets even bigger. There's actually a third wife and a girlfriend they've found in investigating him even further that he's assaulted. He got kicked out of America because of domestic violence. And this is where now, like here, I thought I was safe with him having the police check to get his real estate license. This is where now, working with, the police and governments around Australia, what I do behind the scenes as well is strengthening all these laws and regulations, and making even like bringing Claire's Law into Australia, but then the dating sites, making people have a police check, but making the police check so strong. We've got this problem that's happening in the childcare with people getting their working with children's check, and them not being nice people. This is when we need to strengthen everything so that we can make Australia a safer place for us all, no matter what we're doing. So having things tighten, like I thought that police check was something that would save me because he had a real estate license. You know, we're not all good people in general, and that's now why he's a very unsafe person, and we don't need him out in our world, because he is going to kill somebody. He wants to kill somebody. You know, he shows no remorse and still pleading not guilty for what he done to me.
Why do you think that is?
Not sure. Not sure. Could have been his upbringing. You just don't know. Obviously, bad mental health, and obviously I'm working, having to just go through a parole period where that's where they found out all this extra information for him. Him still pleading not guilty. He obviously hasn't done the rehab inside to apply for parole, and still pleading not guilty. And this is where our self-care, for whether it's for our body or our mind, is so important.
Yeah.
You know, our world has to be a safer place, you know, not just for us here today, but our next generations coming through. Like, I want to have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, not today, tomorrow, or next year, but I want the world to be a safer place for them, you know. And working with governments to bring Clare's Law into Australia, which is the right to ask and the right to know, is something we should be entitled to. You know, you can check up one of your mates. Yep, is she a good girl or not a good girl? Has she had any priors or whatever? We should be able to find this out about people. You know, that's so yeah, you know, we should be able to walk out the front door and feel safe. Yeah, we should be able to walk out at midnight and know we're not going to get mobbed. Do you know what I mean? But we can't do that. And it's
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I would go as far to say to make the external world a little safer, we need to first start with the internal world. We got to have these conversations and be able to create an environment in which we can really understand oneself.
absolutely.
You know, we all got that devil and angel on the shoulder, and the one that wins is the one that we listen to more often than not.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, like when it comes to males, now I've experienced a lot of like safe males, but I've experienced a hell of a lot more unsafe males. Grow up in an environment where violence is a currency. So you look around, but you actually start to understand their life and their experience with the world, and it ends up shaping their worldview. And you know, they might be a little bit like ADHD in school, or a little bit upset, and then they're kicked outside. And then essentially, the point I'm trying to make is they're always left with communicating with themselves.
Yes.
So when we make the point of counseling, I couldn't agree with you any more, because it's like we can. I have an idea. I'm going to express it in a safe environment, which might make me feel vulnerable, but the environment is safe with a trusted individual like yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to turn around and essentially tell me, "Al, that's not actually true. Here's the reality." And we're going to have this adult conversation, and I can even break that perspective, or we can figure out a way of getting through it. And unfortunately, when it comes to young males, and let's talk about like young males, because nobody's born evil. I don't think anyone's born evil.
I agree.
Right? And then something happens somewhere, and it's like, okay, well, I 1000% agree with, like, when things are happening, we need something to occur. But I'm also like, we need to stop this bullshit from happening.
Yeah.
Like, somebody shouldn't have to go through this for us to be like, oh yeah, it's a problem. I was like, no, we should have stopped the problem before anybody has to go through it. And
So
again,
true.
we're adults that we can learn these things without having to make the mistake.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And getting back to something having to happen in your life to, you know, put us in this mindset. That's totally right. I spoke at a national police conference for Australia and New Zealand just before COVID,
Amazing.
and they had a lady from Perth, and I'll never forget it. And she says, if there's domestic violence in the home and there's a baby in the womb, that baby will pick it up.
Yep.
Before it's even born. And you know, I was in Adelaide 2.5 weeks ago speaking at a school, and it was an all boys school, but it's changing over to co-ed. But year 12 is still all boys. And so speaking to the 10, 11, 12s first, and then the 7, 8, 9s, And this year 12 boy came up to me, and I always do Q&A and then have one-on-one time if students want to come up. And he came up and he said, Simone, he goes, I can't have a girlfriend. I said, why can't you, mate? He said, because he goes, when I was 6, he said, my auntie was, I had a fight with my auntie, and 2 weeks later she died of cancer. I didn't know she was unwell. He said, I've lived with that ever since. He goes, if I have a girlfriend, how do I know I'm not going to get angry with her?
Yeah.
I said to him, I said, mate, I said, this is where, I said, you've got 3 counsellors here at school, unpack it. Get through it, and then I said, you'll attract the most beautiful person and you'll treat her with royalty. I said, and kudos to you for sharing that with me, you know, and that's where even going into workplaces, corporates and different things, the way I present, I get staff coming up to me and saying, oh, look, Jimmy, my boss doesn't know this, but I'm actually being affected by domestic violence now. I said, you know what? I said, you've got, you know, all the DV care and support now in workplaces. I said, use it. I said, you know, you're not alone on this. It's something that we all can work together. There's not just, you know, there's not just counsellors and services and police all in this. I said, you know, your mate in your next bay over, talk to them, let them know.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that my emphasis on that is you're not alone. You know, it's once you especially going to see the police and report, services get involved straight away. So it's actually in New South Wales, the Georges River Shire Council, the police area there's 5 police stations, cannot, you know, speak about them highly enough, because in their police stations, they've actually got, you go in and do your statement, and that lady, you know, normally she'll walk out the door and, you know, she'll go, oh, it's just as easy to go back to him. But, and, you know, knowing that she hasn't got a house over her, to live in or whatever, they've actually got services there at the police station that they go from doing their statement into that room. That lady will leave, or man, if it's whoever's, you know, the victim, will leave that police station with a roof over their head, clothing, money, and food, to know that they're protected. And that's what I'm pushing for around Australia. Every police station should be able to do that. And I also do tell people, don't just go to the first police station if you're not, you know, if you're feeling that you aren't, you know, being looked after. If they're saying, oh, you know, no, it's your fault, you know, that's not really how it is. Go to another police station. I said, because some police stations aren't the best fit for some people. So just keep going until you get the response that you should be getting. Go to, even if you've got to go to 5 police stations, get someone that will eventually listen to you properly.
I got a question, and I'm sorry if I don't structure it in a great way, but the cage that one sits in, the cage of fear, right? When they experience these types of things, or they're worried, or, and this can be in any context, but we're speaking about this context today. How would you advise somebody, if you were a little angel on their shoulder and you were going to whisper a little sentence into their ear, how would you advise them to break out of that cage?
Just keep remembering that you're not alone. And there's 3 things that I have done for myself, knowing how I've rocked many weird and wonderful hairdos and how I've looked over my time. Never give up, stay positive and keep smiling. A smile, you know, it can change someone's world. And, you know, you say that to yourself and you just automatically, you do smile. But just remember to break out of that cage. You're not alone. There is someone there to help you. And that's my biggest, you know, I can, you know, the support that I've had on my journey, it's, above and beyond. And letting someone know that you do need help, it's good. It's gold, because they will step in and help you.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like once you lend out a hand and ask for help once, and somebody stretches out, and obviously doesn't shut you down, but somebody stretches out, then you're on a slide. Man, it's golden. You're good then. Absolutely. It's not in a position where somebody doesn't say you're fucking crazy.
It's on the other side of it, if it's, say, me checking in on you and say, hey, mate, you okay? Even if you say no to me, if you say, no, I'm good, 3 or 4 times, and you've got that gut feeling that there's something wrong with him,
Yeah.
go that extra mile. And you know what? They'll eventually say, as I say, be that nagging mum like me. They'll eventually say, oh, look, he hit me last night, or she did this to me, or, there'll be that little bit of element that you'll be able to go, let's go and get help. Let's work on this together. I'm here to help you. Like it's breaking that fear that they've got in them.
Yeah, like I'll tell you a quick story. Like quite recently, a few months ago, we had a member in the gym, and she ended up getting like an injection or Botox or something, and it ended up giving her a black eye, right? And I've got no idea. I've never seen that before. And she comes into my evening class, so it's the end of the day, and as soon as I see her, I'm like, mate, you're good. Like, we got to go send the boys around. Like, what's going on? Like, who's getting my elbow in their fucking throat? Like, and she's like, no. Like, and then explains the story, right? And I was like, I've never heard of that before. And I was checking in on her all the time.
Good.
And again, she's like, mate, honestly, pack it in. Like, I'm all good. And she goes, you want to know something? Nobody has said anything all day. And I go, mate, you've got a absolute fuck off black eye.
Yeah.
She goes, no, I've been at work. Nobody said a thing. And I'm there pissed. Me just being like a Northern English guy and blonde, like pissed. I'm just like, why has nobody even asked?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's blatant. That's
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
the same thing as if you walk into the room limping, I'm gonna be like, you're right.
Yep.
Or white, you're super white. It's like you look a little ill. Are you okay?
And it's like if it's 40 degrees outside and she's got long jumper, high neckline, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is he covering up something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I always say, arcs, are they okay?
Yeah.
And
they could tell you to piss off, and you'd be like, okay, I will take that any day of the week. But for them to understand another human being actually saw them,
yes,
not saw through them.
Yeah.
I'll take the 1 in 5 telling me to get fucked up. Whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I went into Officeworks the other day, and this lady, she did her mannerism. She just didn't want to serve me. Like she just sort of give me the cold shoulder type of thing, and I could see she had an "Are you okay?" badge on. And I said to her, I said, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "Thank you so much for asking." It just changed the whole different pitch of the sales, and it was like I was her best friend, and she didn't want me to leave the shop then. And just you don't those 3 words, "Are you okay?" just can change someone else, their mindset, snap them out of if they're in a hole to bring it out, and then So yes, it's so important. Kudos to you for asking, her about her eye, because that's huge.
Oh no, like there should be no gratitude towards somebody who's being a human being. At the end of the day, I think we've lost a lot of humanity within us humans. Whether that's the extraction of communication, one-on-one, and the reliance upon technology. I mean, ironically, because we're using it today, or just like maybe the state of the economy, so people have to work more and they got less time to think about it. They're more stressed, less sleep. I'm not sure. Like I don't know where the problem actually originates from, but I would just say take accountability. Like the biggest thing as an adult, I think the transition from a child to an adult is raising your hand and accepting responsibility of your own actions.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then you're still a child in my eyes.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, well, how can I contribute to this? Even if it is so small, maybe it's huge, or maybe it's like basically nothing. It's like, but my actual actions, the things that I do with my hands that comes out of my mouth, actually creates a ripple effect. That is on me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's big.
And that's myself working with perpetrators, which is something I never thought I'd do. And that's what I say to them. I said, own what you've done. I said, then turn your life around like I have done, turn it into a positive and help our next generations. And tell them, no, don't go stealing cars or doing this or doing that, because I said they'll look up to you because you've been to jail. I think you're, own what you've done and then just turn it around. Yeah.
I love you for that. I really love you for that, because I think the greatest power in being a human being is our ability to change.
Yeah.
You know, it's hardwired in the helix of our DNA, right, to be able to mutate so we survive.
Yeah.
But the psyche and the characters which we actually walk around with, the soul, I guess, if you want to call it that, it has the ability to change. We just have to punch our ego in the face and hold ourselves accountable to it. But
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's rough.
Yes. It, yeah, it is. But, it is what it is. And we need to, make that, own it and make that change.
Correct. We can do better.
We can do better. Absolutely. Each and every day.
Yep. And I am my brother's keeper. That's what I'd say to people.
Yeah.
I am my brother's keeper.
Perfect. Yeah.
Mate, thank you. I won't keep you away from Dolores. I just guessed the name. I do apologize, but I won't keep you away from the neighbor.
Yeah, no, she's a hoot, and just, me doing this with you and now going on to my next one, to help Kate next door, and then, I've got a meeting tonight for another conference overseas type of thing. So it's just, helping that next person each and everywhere. But thank you. And Alex, happy to jump on again some other time with you and just chat. And
You're more
anytime.
than welcome. Anytime you want. I'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Although I don't have to because we're in the same time, which is great.
Yeah, we are.
Perfect. Mate, anytime. And I got I'm probably gonna have a bit of work that I would like to collaborate on. So
Perfect. No,
I'll talk to you about it.
that'd be great.
Thanks. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
Alex. You
See you
too.
soon.
Thanks. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.